This is part 3 of LINQ tutorial. In this video, we'll discuss what extension methods are and how to implement extension methods. This is the definition of extension methods according to MSDN. We'll come back to this definition in just a bit. First, let's look at an example. LINQ's standard query operators like select, where, autobuy, etc. all of these are implemented in enumerable class as extension methods on the IEnumerable of T interface. Look at this example right here. Numbers here, this is of type list, and here within this list we have got numbers 1 to 10, and notice within the second line we are calling where method. This where method is not defined within the list class. It's actually implemented as an extension method in IEnumerable of T interface. Now, in spite of this method not belonging to the list class, we are still able to call it as though that belonged to list class. So how is this possible? It's possible because this where method is implemented as an extension method on IEnumerable of T interface, and then list of T implements IEnumerable of T. So that's why this is still valid. So now let's look at an example of implementing extension methods. Let's flip to Visual Studio. So here I have a new console application, and this is what we want to achieve. Let's say I have a string called strname and it holds a value of Prajim. So what we want to do is extend the string class, meaning we want to be able to call a method on this string instance, something like change first letter case. Okay, so we don't have such a method within the string class, so at the moment we will definitely have a compilation error. So what should this method do? Now this method should basically change the case of the first letter. If the first letter is in lowercase, it should change it to uppercase. If it's in uppercase, it should change it to lowercase. Okay, so we want to be able to extend the string class. So we want to store the result in another string. Let's call it maybe result. Okay, so we want to be able to achieve something like this. So let's see how to make it possible using extension method. Now, obviously, if we want to achieve that, the first thing that comes to our mind is to add this method to the string class. But if you look at the string class, we don't own this class. It actually belongs to .NET Framework, so that's not possible. And the second alternative that comes to our mind is, why don't we create a base class and then define this method there and then make string class inherit from it. Again, that's not possible because we don't own the string class. The third alternative is to create a wrapper class or a helper class. So let's actually add to this project a class file, and let's call it maybe string helper.cs. So our class name is going to be string helper. So let's make this class public, and this class is going to have a method, and let's make it static method, and this is going to return a string, and let's call it the same name what we have here, change first letter case, and this is going to take an input parameter of type string, and let's call this maybe input string. Now, what is the responsibility of this function? It should change the case of the first letter within the string that's passed to this method. Okay, so if the input string dot length, if that is greater than 0, then we know for sure there's at least one character within that string. That's when we want to change the case of the first letter. Otherwise, if the length is 0 or if the string is null, simply return the input string. And to speed things up, I have already typed the required logic, so let's copy and paste it right here. Okay, so if you look at what we are doing here, we are basically converting the input string, whatever is coming into this function, into a character array, and then we are taking the first character from that array, and then we are checking, is it in uppercase using isUpper function. So this function is going to return true or false. If it is true, then convert that letter to lowercase using toLower function. Otherwise, if it's not upper, then it is in lowercase. If that's the case, convert it to uppercase. Okay, so one line logic right there. And then what we are doing, we are taking that entire character array and creating a new string and returning that back. Okay, so pretty simple logic there. Now, so we have a helper class here, so it's going to work, but the problem is we cannot still use this syntax right here because change first letter case is not present within the string class. That's why you will not be able to call it as though it's an instance method belonging to the string class. Okay, so how to call or how to use this function? To be able to use this function, we have to use this class name. So we have to do something like this. So let's comment this. So in this line right here, we use that string helper class which we have just written, and then we call that method change first letter case, and then we pass our input string which is strname. And let's quickly print out the output and see if it works as expected. So it should change letter P to capital letter. Okay, so it's working as expected, but we are still not there yet. We want to be able to do something like this. Okay, so we want to be able to call this change first letter case as though it's an instance method defined within the string class. Okay, to achieve that, we need to turn this method into an extension method. And to turn a method into an extension method, there are two simple things that we need to do. The first thing is make this class itself, the string helper class itself, a static class. That's the first change. And the second change is, what is the type that we want to extend here? We want to extend the string class. Okay, so that should be the first parameter within this function, and that's the case here. And then another thing that we need to do is we should precede the type name, which is string in this case, with this keyword. Okay, so those are the two changes. So we have our original function, we are adding static keyword to the class itself, and we add this keyword. This keyword should precede the type that we are extending, and the type that we are extending should be passed as the first parameter to this function. If you have other parameters, you can pass them as well, but then they have to be something other than the first parameter. Your first parameter has to be the type that you are extending, and this keyword has to precede the type name. Okay, so with these two changes, we should now be able to use, let's comment this one right here, the syntax. So when we uncomment this, look at that, we don't have any compilation errors. And another thing to notice, look at this, when I press dot, look at that, IntelliSense shows up that method, but with a different visual clue. Look at the symbol right here, you have a downward pointing arrow, so that what indicates that it is an extension method, whereas toChar is a regular instance method that is defined within the string class, but whereas this one is an extension method. Okay, that symbol indicates that. So now if we pass strname, as we don't have to pass strname because that's going to be acting as an instance method. So what it is going to do is change the string first letter to an uppercase in this example. So let's go ahead and run this. Look at that, it has changed it. Okay, so that's how the extension methods are implemented. Now this is now an extension method. Does that mean if we try to use this wrapper class style syntax, will it give us a compilation error? Not really. In fact, behind the scene, what actually happens is when you have this piece of code right here, okay, this syntax will actually be converted into wrapper class style syntax, and then the method will be invoked. Okay, this extension methods, this is just a syntactic sugar to make the life of developer easier. Okay, now this also means whatever extension methods that we have within system.link namespace, we should still be able to use them using this wrapper class syntax style, isn't it? Because they are indeed extension methods, right? So let's look at an example. So let's take this right here. So here we have list of numbers 1 to 10, and here we are using where extension method to retrieve only even numbers from that list. So let's actually use a for each loop and then print each number. So let's say for each int, let's call it even number, in those even numbers collection, what we want to do is simply print even number. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see if we get only the even numbers. So there we go, we get only the even numbers. Now this where method, this is actually defined in enumerable IEnumerable of T interface, that's enumerable class. Okay, so now we should be able to use the wrapper class style syntax here. So instead of this one, I should be able to tell enumerable. So this enumerable class is present again in system.link namespace. So enumerable dot where. Okay, but we need to specify, we need to pass the source of the numbers to this function as the first parameter. What is the source? This collection right here. So let's pass that to this where method, and then the second parameter is the code that we want to be executed. So this, look at this, here we are using wrapper class style syntax here. So let's go ahead and run this now, and look at this, we get the same output, right? So but these link extension methods, they make the developer life much easier because we are using them as though they are instance methods on the list class. Okay. Alright, now if we go back to the first slide, this is the definition of extension methods according to MSDN. Extension methods enable you to add methods to the existing type without creating a new derived type, recompiling, or otherwise modifying the original type. And if you recollect what we have done, that's what we have essentially done. We have extended the string class without modifying it, okay, with the help of extension methods. And extension methods are a special kind of static method. You have seen that this extension method is actually a static method within a static class, which allows us to be calling them as an instance method on the type that we are extending. In this case, we have extended string type. For client code that is written either in C# or Visual Basic, there's no apparent difference between calling an extension method and the methods that are actually defined in a type. Alright, that's it for today. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.